This is when the new timeline that you have been working so hard to prepare for, to call in, to craft and create, this is when it happens. This is when it becomes real. This is when you start to live it and see it in real time. It's time to go. It's time to move. It is time to decide. It is time to choose. All great accomplishments have one thing in common. They begin right now. They always begin right now because now is all we ever have. You have your launch codes. You've received the download. You have the information, and now it's time to activate. What activates the information you've been asking for is your decision that it's time to go. You must decide what your priorities are. It's time. Not just from the feminine feeling, desiring, dreaming, intuitive place. That is crucial. But as I've been saying for the past couple of months, now your masculine property, your practical, gotta do it, get up, build it, find the tools, find the resources, find the collaborators, find the plan, and execute. You've gotta do it. It's time. It's time to honor the feminine why and now activate the masculine how. Hi, everybody. My name's Amar. I am essentially an intuitive problem solver. My job is to help you find the clarity in the chaos and the message in the mess. This is your August energy forecast. I'm entitling this one Permission to Launch. I know normally we hear permission to land, but this isn't about landing. This is about launching. This is about going. This is about moving forward. This is about deciding that it is time. This is the month when you're going to have to make some tough choices. August is a building. August is a momentum. August is a train that has left the station and is continuing to pick up speed. The tough choices that you're going to be faced with this month, they're only really going to be tough if you're still letting old emotional attachments and old outdated wounds cloud your judgment. I've talked about this before. Your wounds and what happened to you, your trauma, your history, the things that, were bad, or the things that were challenging, or the things that were troubling, nobody can take that away from you. Your experience is your experience. It belongs to you. And when I tell you that your experience belongs to you, that also includes what you decide to do with your experience. It's really, really hard sometimes from our human perspective to see how perhaps we have chosen certain things or how perhaps we have invited certain things into our experience. And rather than get caught in this, he said, she said, you did this, I did that, I think the most important thing to acknowledge is it's up to you to decide where you go now. What do you do now? What is it time for now? The Galactic New Year began on July 26th. We have the day out of time on July 25th. This is following the 13-moon lunar cycle that the Mayan calendar follows. The idea being that now we are in the new timeline. We are in the new reality. I've been talking about this for several years now, that this is when things really begin to move. This is when things really begin to grow roots. The rubber hits the road. We get some traction and we're beginning to move forward. This is when the new timeline that you have been working so hard to prepare for, to call in, to craft and create, this is when it happens. This is when it becomes real. This is when you start to live it and see it in real time. It's also when things start to get a little bit crazy because we're also moving towards the Lion's Gate, which peaks on August 8th. Then we have the next couple of weeks up until about August 16th that this window remains open. But August 8th really is the portal, the pinnacle of claiming where you are, where you have come, and what it's time to do. The way that you know you're on the path, I hear this all the time. People asking me, but Amar, okay, I want to do it. I know there's something more. I know there's something else. I know there's something greater, but what is the path? How do I know? The way that I look at it is the way you know you're on the path is when there is no path that's visible. Think about it. If the path before you is clear, if it is well defined and you can see left, right, center, and what's up and around the corner, it's not a new path. And most likely it's not your path. So the unknown and the not knowing and the lack of clarity and the lack of understanding beyond just a sense of, oh, this is something that I got to do, that's how you know you're on the path. The sign you've been waiting for is the fact that you don't really know what you're doing or how to do it. You have a sense, you have a knowing, you have a vision, you have a dream, you have the desire, right? The feminine self. But beyond that, it's not necessarily going to be super, super clear. The reason is because you're in a new timeline. You have arrived at the shores of a new world, of a new reality. And so if you know exactly where you're going, then you're probably not going somewhere somewhere new. That's what we've been asking for, right? All of this conversation and all of this talk about the new earth, about the new world, about the new reality, about the new year, new you, this is when it begins. And if it's new, it's going to be unfamiliar. I mean, imagine if you are an explorer and you sailed across the ocean halfway around the world and your boat lands on some new, continent, some new island. You've never been there before. You don't know what to expect. You don't know, is anyone living here? Is there already a civilization? I don't know. So the only way that you're going to know is by beginning to explore, by beginning to choose and beginning to decide. Looking for a sense of comfort or familiarity outside of yourself, especially when you're beginning something new, is almost always a waste of time, because the comfort that you're seeking, the familiarity that you're seeking is within, especially in the beginning, especially when the only thing that's clear is this is what I got to do. I know there's something else. So when you're beginning something new, it is exactly that. It's new. You have no frame of reference beyond what you feel inside. And often, and I talk about this all the time, only you know what truth feels like. So the sense of like, okay, it's like the game of hot and cold with the universe. Am I moving this way, colder? Okay, moving this way, warmer. So sometimes the only way you know which is the right direction is by how you feel. This is one of my favorite lessons from my book, Notes from the Higher Self. And that is when you boil it all down, really in every moment with every choice, only one of two things is happening. You're either moving towards your truth or away from it. And oftentimes, especially in the beginning of those journeys and those new chapters, oftentimes the only way you know is by how you feel, right? It's a sense of like, okay, this feels right. This feels correct. This feels liberating. This feels freeing. This feels exciting. This feels invigorating or inspiring. Whatever the thing is, you can tell it's a sense of like, ooh, okay, yes, this is where I want to go. On the opposite side of that is the sense of like, oh God, no, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel clear. That doesn't feel liberating. That doesn't feel like freedom. That feels old. That feels restricted. That feels scarce. That feels small. So it's really about understanding that whatever it is that you're looking for, right? This idea of like, okay, ascension, the idea of like a new timeline, the idea of a new reality, even the idea of some place like, heaven or paradise or the master's realm or the Akashic records or even the fifth dimension, sixth, seventh, all of those places are just a frequency. Think of it like this. It's like a channel on the radio. The only way that you're able to tune into the rock and roll station is by tuning your dial to that station. And that frequency is not necessarily a place. Okay, sure, there's someone sitting in a booth somewhere with a microphone choosing the playlist and figuring out what song is going to come next. But even that is really defined by the frequency. Without the frequency, the studio would have no reason to exist. All you're doing is tuning into a specific channel. All you're doing is tuning your dial internally into the vibe, into the frequency, into the flavor that you want. So whatever it is that you're talking about, whatever it is, the vision and the dream that you might have, especially when it's not manifested yet, that is the location. The location begins with the frequency. The location is just tuning your dial and finding the right little subtle, nuances and the right little perfect place that you tune that dial until it clicks and you can hear it. It's like the combination on a safe. It is that waiting for the click, waiting for the sound, waiting for the sense of like, ooh, yes, that's what it is. So a destination, a dream realized, a dream fulfilled and manifested is a vibration and a location. Because even a physical location on the planet has a latitude and longitude. It has a specific point in space and time, right? We can zero in on a star that's light years away, and we understand that it's on a specific point on some sort of bandwidth. And so if something has a space, if it occupies a point, then it can be measured. A specific point can be measured geometrically. And if it can be measured geometrically, that means it has a vibration. And geometry is the building block of our entire reality. So if it has a vibration, then it can be tuned into, listen to this, write this down. A frequency, a vibration is a location in and of itself. So if it has a vibration, if it has a location, then it can be tuned into it even before you arrive in physical form. I've talked about this quite a bit. Everything begins as a frequency first. It's an idea, it's an inspiration, it's the light bulb, it's the epiphany, it's the aha moment. And then it goes from being an idea, even the idea of the creation story, right? The idea of like, oh, let there be light. I want light. Okay, now I want to create some humans so that I have someone to observe and reflect myself on and know myself as an extension of myself through the manifestation of a physical body or another physical being, another physical planet, another physical reality. So everything begins as an idea first, and an idea is just a frequency. It's a vibe. It's a flavor. It's like walking into the restaurant. You smell the food before you eat it. So it's always a sense of something before it's actually physical. So I want to talk about this thing that we perpetuate over and over and over without even really realizing this idea of like, okay, there's a destination that we got to get to. There's a certain point, right? We're waiting for an experience. We're waiting for a sign. We're waiting for a signal to let us know that we've arrived or that we've crossed the finish line. And we put all of these requirements and all these qualifications on, okay, when this person is in office, then we're going to know we've arrived. Okay, when this announcement happens, then we know we've arrived. When we see this ship landing in this part of the country or flying through the sky, then we're going to know that it's happened. I understand needing to have physical markers and physical signifiers. That's part of the human experience. A physical reality requires a physical experience. And yet, like I just said, it is going to be a vibe, it's going to be a frequency, it is going to be an idea or a dream or a desire before it is a thing. So rather than continuing to kick the can down the road and saying, oh, we haven't crossed the finish line yet. Nope, we haven't made it there yet because I haven't seen ABC and 1, 2, 3. Consider that you have actually already crossed the finish line. Consider that you have begun a new journey. That's why it doesn't make sense, again, because it is new. So stop looking for an ending and lean into the beginning. Stop turning to the past and the history, trying to understand it and categorize it and make sense of it, and turn towards the future, turn towards the new potential, and begin to play with that. Here's something that I see all of the time. Usually when someone is looking for an ending, what they're really looking for is a shift out of old patterns and circumstances. The only reason we ever want something to end is because it's no longer satisfying. It's no longer rewarding. It's no longer fulfilling. And we so desperately want something else. And oftentimes we're trying to figure out what is the new thing through the mind, which I've said a million times. The mind is the least imaginative, least creative part of you. The mind has really one job, and that is to categorize and organize information relative to what you have already experienced. So when someone's looking for an ending or a shift, it's because they're done. They want something new. But again, we're looking outside of ourselves to say, well, where's my savior? Where is my white knight? But the fact that you have a desire for something new is the new thing itself. Again, everything begins as an idea. Everything begins as a question. Everything begins as, a curiosity. The first step in building the airplane was not drawing a plan, not cutting down a tree, not building a model. The first step in building an airplane was lying in the grass, looking up at the sky, going, I wonder what it would be like to fly like a bird. So the desire is evidence that the new thing is on the way. The question, the curiosity about something else and something more is the sign, is the signifier that it's time to begin to move on and build the new thing. So sometimes what creates an ending is just deciding that you're done. Sometimes what creates a shift is deciding to move on without having a clear picture of what exactly happened and why. Oftentimes the obsession with why did this happen? Why did that I experience that? Why? That is often rooted in the need for the mind to know who was right and who was wrong. Who do I punish and who do I reward? Who is the sinner and who is the saint? So maybe it's not always about right or wrong. Maybe it's about understanding that something didn't work, something broke, it didn't go as planned, and that's okay to accept it and move on anyway. This is another message from my book, Notes from the Higher Self. When the why is important, you will be given that too. Look, I get it. The human expectation and the human desire to find out exactly who is responsible when we are hurt or angry or lost or in trouble, that's a very real desire. And I'm not denying that. I'm not trying to minimize that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to understand why something happened and who do I point the finger at. But when you boil it all down, the only person that can ultimately be responsible for how and what and when you're going to move on is you. Regardless of what happens, You must decide when and how you're going to proceed from here. Again, all we have is now. So, what are you going to do now? What are you going to make of the situation and the circumstances that you are currently in? Even if you are able to make peace with what happened, even if you are able to confront the person who traumatized you or caused you all that pain, even if you are able to somehow find your way out of the circumstances and solve the problem, so to speak, you're still going to have to, at some point, decide where you're going to go and what are you going to do now. The vision that you have for what it is you want from your life and what it is time to create, it was not given to you on accident. It was not a mistake. And you are never given a vision or a dream that you aren't able to fulfill or to satisfy. So it's about allowing the process of creation to inform you as you proceed. Again, sometimes the path calls you forward. Sometimes the fact that there is no path and there is nothing clear is exactly the sign that you need to keep going. So I want to take a quick moment just to remind you of my YouTube memberships. I have 2 levels of membership here. Members get first access to all my new video content, the energy forecasts at the beginning of the month and the energy updates throughout the month. There's members only posts on the community tab. Every membership gets access to a monthly live stream that I'm doing. It's just like sort of a spontaneous gathering. I answer questions. I give you an opportunity to submit your questions about anything you're curious about, anything that you want guidance or insight or support on or help understanding. I'm here for you. It's very similar to what I did the What the WTF series a couple of months ago. So if you enjoyed that, that's what the monthly live stream is going to be for all the members. And then there's a second member level, and that is going to include all of the stuff that the first level gets, plus a monthly gathering called the Energy Tune-Up. And the Energy Tune-Up is essentially group energy work. We're going to gather together in a virtual circle. I will be the channel and the conduit for the messages and the channeling and the guidance that comes through. Then we'll do some amazing energy work as a group to clear and balance your energy and then integrate whatever new frequencies want to come in. And our first gathering is going to be this month on August 8th for the Lionsgate portal. We all know that that is going to be some big pinnacle peak energy. And so that is going to be the inaugural gathering for the Energy Tune-Up. I would love for you to be a part of this. Both of my memberships levels are less than $10. It's super, super cheap. I don't even think you can get like 2 cups of coffee for less than $10 these days. So I would love to see you. Please take a second to check out my membership options, and I hope to see you in. I often talk about this in my client sessions that life is like a game of chess. And sometimes you feel like you are the one moving yourself across the board. And sometimes when it doesn't make sense, it's about understanding that you, from a higher perspective, is the one moving the board. You could call it God, spirit, the universe, whatever, but the understanding that when it doesn't make sense, it's about surrendering to the fact that you may not have the entirety of the vision or the plan in front of you, accessible to your conscious mind, but that doesn't mean that you're still not being guided and moved in the same direction. But here's what is really beginning to happen. It's the understanding that there is no separation between you and spirit, you and God, you and the universe. You are all of that, and all of that is you. So I think mentally it is important that we really begin to understand and to comprehend that there is no separation between us and the things that we want. I think it's really, really healthy and really, really helpful to begin to dismantle whatever construct lives within you mentally, physically, biologically, or energetically. Remove the construct of the idea that what you want is out there somewhere or over there somewhere or has to be granted to you by someone else or some higher power. It's about really understanding that, using that analogy of the chessboard, you are the chess piece, you are the hand moving the piece, you are the board that the game is being played upon, you are all of it. So whatever you can do to begin to call it to you and say, okay, it may not be manifested at this current location in space and time, but I can trust the call of it. I can trust the vision of it. That's like the fishing line, like you've been hooked by a future version of yourself, and now you're reeling yourself in and saying, it's over here, go in this direction, do that thing, ask those questions, have that conversation. But whatever it is that you need to do, to begin to really understand, to really begin to embody and integrate the truth that you are not separate from any of it, that even the support and the resources and the guidance that you need is ultimately just coming from another aspect of all that you are, because you are all that is and all that is you. Think of it like this. It's kind of like if you think of a clock or a watch, and it has all of those gears, and some of those pieces are really, really tiny, and some of the gears are really, really big. And it's really easy to say, oh, well, that gear is really, really big, so that must be more important than the really teeny tiny one. But here's the truth. If one part of that clockwork, if one part of that system of gears doesn't work, the whole thing comes to a grinding halt. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about how big it is or how small it is, how significant or insignificant it is. I think ultimately it's just about understanding that you are part of a much grander, much larger system. You are the wheel, the little cog, and you are the entirety of the system itself. So honor the fact that you matter. Honor the fact that you have value. Honor the fact that you are here for a reason. Look, if you woke up today in a body, if you opened your eyes and have the consciousness and awareness to perceive yourself and to move through your day in whatever way you do, that is evidence that you still have a purpose to fulfill. You still have work to do. And ultimately, this is another thing that I hear all of the time. Amar, what's my purpose? What's the point? Ultimately, in the big picture, the big answer for everybody is your purpose is to simply be the fullest expression of spirit that you can be. Your purpose is to allow all that is to move through you, through your body, through your awareness, through your consciousness, and express itself in the way that you can understand how to do it. Be as free as you can. Be as open as you can. Be as vocal as you can. Be as expressive as you can. Be as unrestricted and unhindered and uninhibited as you can allow yourself to be. And if you don't know how, that's when you take a breath, you take a moment, you place your hand on your heart, and you say, Spirit, remind me of how to be your voice. Remind me of how to be your eyes, your ears, your hands, your body. Remind me of how to be the fullest expression of all that is that I can. Make it joyful, make it loud, make it real, make it bold, make it beautiful, make it soft, make it compassionate. Whatever it is, make it yours because you were given it for a reason. We can no longer pretend that it's not time for something new. We can no longer pretend that we are satisfied when we are not. We can no longer pretend that this division of you and him versus me and them and us and the other is not just total bullshit. We are here to acknowledge that we're all in this together. We are here to really begin to come together and understand that we all need each other to figure this out, to get this solved, to get this done. And yes, some people, we need to figure out how to get them out of the way, but they're still an integral part of it. The things and the people and the circumstances that you see as your challenges, that you see as your blocks, that you see as your barriers, to quote my favorite astrologer, Stephanie Azaria, it's not a block, it's a stepping stone. It is there so that you can climb it and reach a higher perspective. So anything that you perceive that stands in your way, your job is to find yourself within it. What does this physical block represent within me? What does this challenge represent within me? What does this person that I just want to crucify and eradicate from the face of the earth because they trigger me so hard? What is it that they represent about something within you that you still have to accept, that you still have to acknowledge, that you still have to love, and then either discard it and let it go or integrate it and embody it? Either way, whether it's someone that is, in your way and trying to stop you, or someone that is pushing you from behind and encouraging and supporting you, either way, all they are is a representation of something that you have within you already in some way. So whatever it is that you feel like is standing in front of you, whatever it is that you feel like is challenging to you or confusing to you or unclear to you, lean into that, because these are the new things that are coming to us because now we are ready to solve them. Now we are ready to heal them, to fix them, to understand them, to release them. And it's time to turn away from what doesn't work anymore. It's time to turn away from what is broken. I talked about this in one of the July videos last month, that sometimes things aren't broken because they need to be fixed. Sometimes things are broken because they're just done. They're depleted. That battery is drained. That program has run itself out. There's no more juice left in the fruit. And so sometimes it's really about understanding that, okay, I may not know what direction I'm heading in terms of the physical path, but I have a sense that it's time to move on and move in a new direction. And that is enough. I promise you, All you need is the desire to begin. And here's the thing: if you go left when you should have gone right, the universe is self correcting. You don't need to get so obsessed and so fixated on getting every single step and every single, choice right. Perfectionism is really not doing you any good. It's holding you back, it's preventing you from fully expressing yourself. So the universe is like GPS. If you go left when you should have gone right, it's self correcting. It'll get you back on track, no problem. And you will never be asked to surrender anything that you still require. Hear me when I say this. You will never be asked to surrender something that you still require. So if you give something up or you let something go and it's not quite done, just trust that it will come back around and give you another opportunity to engage with it, to acknowledge it, and to accept it. And sometimes things need to die so that they can be reborn in a higher form. I've been thinking a lot about this. Like sometimes it's about relationships. And I know we've all heard the stories of like people who were together or married and then they divorced or separated and then they got back together a couple of years later and everything was lovely and perfect. Sometimes we need to be willing to let something go and walk away from it so that we can come back to it with a fresh set of eyes or a higher perspective or a deeper level of wisdom and experience. So just because you're being asked to let something go and you're not uncertain, trust yourself. Trust your gut, trust the process, trust the universe that you are being asked to give it up for a reason. You are being asked to move away from it, to move on into something new for a reason. And again, don't get so fixated and obsessed on needing to know why is this happening and who am I to blame and who was right and who was wrong. Just trust. Hands open. This is not receiving. This does not allow you to receive. Receiving looks like this. It's an exhale. Receiving often is preceded by letting go. And if I'm gripping and clinging to something, I cannot receive anything with a closed fist. So I need to be willing to open my hands, to drop my shoulders, to relax my body, let whatever it needs to go, let whatever it wants to go, let it slip through my fingers, and then remain open and receptive so that you can receive what is new. All right, so what I want to do now for my tarot lovers is we're going to draw a card that represents the energy for the first part of the month. I will be back mid-month in a couple of weeks, usually around August 15th, or mid-month. I usually come back with an update. Sometimes I get other updates, who knows, I may have an update for you in the next couple of days. By the way, members also get to view this first. For those of you that are a member, you get to watch this before anybody else. And then usually about 24 to 48 hours after I publish it for members, then everybody else gets to see it. I'm going to shuffle my cards here and we're going to see what card represents the energies for the first part of the month. Okay, so the card that represents your energy or the collective energy for the first couple of weeks of the month is the Five of Cups reversed. One of the things that I often see with this card, let me see if I can, there we go. So if we look at the Five of Cups reversed, so let's just look at it upright real quick. So Five of Cups reversed is usually, an ending that wasn't so happy. It's kind of heartbreak. This is often like a breakup card. The Five of Cups just represents like crying, kind of crying over spilt milk. But what I also see with the Five of Cups is how this figure is cloaked and they have their back turned to the camera. So they're not really showing you their pain. They're not showing you their vulnerability. They're so focused and fixated on what went wrong that they don't even see that these other two cups are still upright. There's another thing that I often see with the Five of Cups, and that even though you're going to be asked to cross the river, and the river is water, and water represents our intuitive, our emotional, our internal self, right? The feminine self that asks us to feel, the feminine requires us to feel. The vision and the dream that this figure has is still there, but it's got to be crossed on the other side of the river, right? Whatever it is that you're moving towards is going to require you to move through those emotional waters. And it's about really, honestly, sometimes the message is it's time for you to turn and face the world. It's time for you to share your open heart. It's time for you to be vulnerable. And even if that means sharing your pain or sharing the fact that you're in a really difficult time or you're feeling kind of challenged or whatever, that is often what is required for us to receive the support, right? A closed mouth doesn't get fed. So if I'm not willing to say, hey, I'm in pain, I'm in trouble, and I need help, it's oftentimes hard for us to receive it. But to see the Five of Cups reversed, what this tells me is it's time to go. Like I was just saying, it's time to let go of your past. It's time to let go of the story of the wounded one, the traumatized one. Even the survivor is rooted in the trauma itself. So when we allow ourselves, and it's not about bypassing, it's not about saying it didn't happen. Just like I said at the beginning of this video, your experience belongs to you. Your life is yours. No one can take away the things that happen to you, but you get to decide what that means. You get to decide, does this still have to hold me back? Do I still need to sit here and lick this wound? Do I still need to open the wound every single day? Am I still really in a phase of healing, or have I just perpetuated the idea of needing to heal because it keeps me safe? Sometimes, this is another message from Notes from the Higher Self, my book available on Amazon. Sometimes the final stage of healing is understanding that there's nothing left to heal. Sometimes the only thing that's left to heal is the belief that you still need to heal. So the Five of Cups reversed is saying it's time to move on. It's time to leave this stuff behind you. And even the two cups that are still upright, again, you will never be asked to surrender something that you still need or that you still require. So you can proceed and say, okay, Spirit, I'm letting go of all of it, and I'll trust that you will sort it out for me. I trust that if there's anything that I've overlooked or that I've missed or that perhaps I wasn't really paying attention to, you're going to put it back in my path. But the question is, when are you going to give yourself permission to move on? Let me say that again. When are you going to give yourself permission to move on? That's what I have for you this month. If I can help you find the clarity in the chaos or the message in the mess, I put my link below for my calendar in the show notes here. You can access me through my booking calendar. I've recently lowered my rates, so all of my rates now are much more affordable because I want as few barriers between you and the support that I can offer you as possible. If you are interested in joining my YouTube channel membership here, the link will be there below. I also now have a Telegram channel, a broadcast channel, and a chat group. You can join those as well. Those are free. You can find me on Instagram at Amar Energy, here on YouTube at Amar Energy. I'm also on TikTok at Amar.energy. I might stay, I might not. We'll see. TikTok is another level of crazy for me. But for the time being, I'm there. Thank you for watching. Have a great start to your month. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. I love you.